Welcome to Swell Academy. Today we're talking about how to evaluate functions using tables and graphs. First, we want to look at a table here. And a lot of times what you'll see in a table when dealing with functions, you see an x and you see an f of x. I'm going to remind you that f of x is equal to y. So our output, when we put in an x into our function, we get our y. So a lot of times you're going to see that. Let's go -3, 0, 2, and 3. Then let's put a 2 here. Let's put a 0 here. We'll put a -3 here. And I want to switch it up, put the -3 here. Now, the reason I'm putting numbers that are the same on both sides is because I want to demonstrate where you need to look in some cases and where you need to look in others. So, for instance, if we're looking or a question is being posed to you, what is your function or your f of x when x is 2? If you see the 2 inside the parentheses, they're saying, what is your function when x is 2? What is f of x when it's 2? Really what you're doing is you're looking for your y. So if they're giving you the number inside the parentheses, you're looking in your x column. So I'm looking where 2 is in order to get my output of 0. So my f, let me switch back to blue there. If my f of 2, if my function, my f of 2, what is y? My y is 0. And if I did, what is f of 0? Same thing. I'm looking in my x column. I'm looking for my inputs. If my input is 0, my output is -3. That's how we're working this. And then if you're given something like, what is f of -3 plus f of 3 minus f of 0. Let's do all that. All you're doing is saying, let's do this one in purple. Okay, my -3, when f of -3, that's 2, plus f of 3, which is -3, minus my f of 0, which is -3. You're just simply using the outputs that you're given when you're given certain inputs. And then we'd have -1 minus a minus is a plus, plus 3. You would get something like 2. So that's how they set up basically equations with inputs. Now, conversely, if you're, let's put this up here a little bit. If you're given something that looks like this, what is f? So basically, it'll look like this. If f of c is 2, and you're looking at this chart, they'll sometimes change the letter. That's what I'm doing. They want to know what is c. So basically, in this case, they're saying when y is equal to 2, what is x? That's what they're. What is c? So, and I'm showing you again these both letters because sometimes they'll just add a different variable in there, but really just looking for x. So you're kind of working backwards here. Now we're looking at 2, and we're trying to see what is our x. So when y is 2, our x is -3. So anytime, so in this you were given an input. Now you're given the output, and they're asking for the input. So if I said f of a given this table is -3, you're saying, okay, where's -3? Here. And actually you could have, so basically, actually we're looking at this. This maybe should have been a different number here. Although you could have this case, but I want to change this up to, just not to confuse you guys, I want to change this up to, let's change it up to a 4. So f of -3, you're looking f of -3, or what is your input of your function when your output is -3? In this case, you would say a is equal to 0. In the other one, you could have said, when I had the -3 here, you could have said a is equal to 0 or 3. You could look at that. because remember, two inputs could equal the same output. You could have that. You could have a case where 0 and 3 both equal -3. So if that were the case, then you would say A or -3. Now let's just look from a graphical standpoint. I like that word graphical. No, I didn't. And we build a quick graph here. We'll just use -3, -1. We'll just build a graph up to 3, and we'll make our f of x graph. Let's hit one here, hit one here, hit one here, up here. Make a little. And basically, I'm picking points that are. That's a good one. It's got a good curve to it. That's a good stock market curve right there. And then let's build one that's kind of, let's hit it at here. We'll go to 0, and then we'll bring it back up to here. Like that. We'll just like this. Okay, and here's our, let's call it g of x. Actually, I'm going to call this green one, h of x. So when we're looking at a graph here, it's basically the same thing. The graph is giving you a set of values. It's basically the same thing as a table, but you have to use the graph to come up with the values, where in the table, they're already given to you. So like we started with last time, they said, okay, what is h of 2? Right? So they're asking h of 2 is what? Well, basically you go where x is 2 here, and you trace to your h graph function here, and when x is 2, my y is 0. I'm just looking back here at what is y at this point. And another one would be like, if h is 3, h of 3, what is my output? Okay, I'm going to 3, and then I'm tracing back to here. Maybe it's when x is 3, maybe 1.75. We'll even throw a decimal in there. Just reading the graph. What is my input? And I know y is output. And then let's look at g. Let's say they said, what is g of c when g of c is equal to let's call it -2, right? So in this case, it's different. Here we were looking at the x-axis. Now we're looking at the y-axis here for our -2. And then we're making sure that we're focusing on our g of x function. So when our y is -2, our x was -3. So when our y was -2, our x was -3. And a couple problems you may see in evaluating functions, they may say, okay, what is g of 5 times, no, not 5, I can't use 5, we didn't go to 5. Let's say g of, what is g of 2 times, let's do h of -1. So what you're doing is looking at 2 here and saying, okay, at 2, my g of x is, let's just say it's roughly 3, times my h of -1 here, times 1, 3 times 1, 3. You may also see one that's, what value have I used at? Let's look at g -2. They'll go like this, 2 times g of -2. So basically, you're just finding what is your value of g of -2. I'm running out of colors. I go to my -2. I have this point here. My g of -2 is 1. So you end up just doing 2 times 1, 2. So this is how you're basically evaluating functions using the values given to you by tables and graphs. And then if they add operations like addition, subtraction, division. You're just simply using the tables and graphs to get your y values to then add those numbers or values. So hope this helps, and be ready for your quiz on Monday.